I'm Ciarán Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. This week we chat with Peadar Kearney from Co Louth, who's run a high output sheep only system where measuring and managing play a key role. Peadar, who is also a participant in the Teagasc BETTER sheep programme, starts off by giving us a quick recap on how lambing has gone this year and what's happening in lambs in interim and how he monitors lamb performance. We move on to discuss the grass situation on his farm and the growth rates in recent weeks, with Peadar describing the grazing groups on his farm, his pre and post grazing management, and the importance of achieving residuals and managing regrowths for his system. We discuss the grazing infrastructure, his paddock system, and use of temporary fencing and the role that has in maintaining grass supply for his flock. Peadar also discussed the importance of measuring grass and using PastureBase as a means of managing grass throughout the year. As Peadar is also participating in flock in the OviData project, working with Sheep Ireland, we finish up discussing the kind of information that's going to be recorded on the ewes at the upcoming 7-week lamb weights. We start off, however, with Peadar giving a bit of background on where he's farming and the system he's running.
Well, we're farming in Co Louth here, in between Ardee and Carrick Cross. We're doing March lambing now since the last few years. We're running about 260 ewes. The farm is split in 2 blocks, rented land and the homeland here. For
the benefit of those out, there's about a mile between both farmlets, and
That's right,
they're kind of managed separately.
Yes, the 2 blocks are managed separately.
Just maybe a quick recap for the listeners, like if 260 ewes lambing, it's a sheep-only system you're running. How did you fare out this year at Lambingham?
Well, we started lambing around the 1st of March, but it didn't really kick in, I suppose, until the 8th of March. First week went great, the weather was good, we got them out. But the second week didn't turn out good at all. Bad weather and a lot of sheep in the shed, and it could have caused problems. But we were lucky enough. After 7 days, the sun shone again, and we let them out. They went quite well, the same as every other year. Ups and downs, some good ones and some bad days.
Look, Peadar, since turnout, you had a bit of hold up for a while, and that puts pressure on any system during March. How have them lambs been doing since turnout for you, or what's happened with them?
Well, we had them in there 3 weeks ago. We had to do them for the coccidiosis. We have a problem on our land, and we done them for the matavirus as well. And when they were in, they looked well. And then in a week after, they didn't look as well. And last week, they looked good. So it's hard to know until we do the 40-day wait next week to see how they're doing. And
it's the old adage, Peadar, too. Like when you're looking at them every week, it's kind of hard to see a change in them. But you're recording, look, you do a lot of recording at Lambingham for us to do in the Better Farm programme, but you would have always been looking at performance recording on the farm. You're due that 7-week wait. I suppose that's what really tests out how well they're doing for you.
Exactly, Ciarán. Without weighing them, you don't really know how they're doing, because some of them are good and some of them are poor. But when you see them in and weigh them, you really know how they're performing.
It also gives you, and I know it's something comes up later in the year, but you pick a lot of your replacements over the years on performance. It really does show you the variation within the flock and what lambs are doing well, but also what ewes are really working hard in the flock and what ewes are taking it a bit easier too.
Exactly. Well, since joining the scheme and even before it, we were very in line with seeing how they were doing. So the way we keep the ewe lambs is how to perform over them first 7 weeks, because we reckon that's the time they're getting the milk from the mothers. And if they're doing well, the ewe lambs we keep, it's because they're doing well in the mothers, and hopefully they'll do well with milk and breeding as well.
Well, his look is probably the best reflection of what the ewes actually contributing to it. Look, at them lambs are starting to eat grass at the moment, and we're talking about performance. It'd be remiss of me not to talk to you about grass, and it's something you're well known for in terms of management of it. Look, it's been a difficult spring in Peadar grass-wise, but in some of them wet conditions of turnout, and more recently we've seen growth rates dip on farms. Yours, just to give a bit more background to the setup, like you have the home block around where you have the sheds and you have the out farm, and basically you have the 2 of them stocked separately, and more or less up to weaning stock doesn't change, maybe with the exception of dry hoggets moving between both farms. How have you managed over the last couple of weeks? Like, what has growth been like, or how are you even currently?
Well, the growth has been up and down, since the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we find at home the growth has been better because of the reseeding, and we seem to be growing a bit more, but growth is poor. And I think this week, like, it's only looking at it for 33 on the out farm, and I think 55 at home. and our demand is more than that. So things are tight enough, Ciarán. We need rain and we need soft weather.
And just like for a lot, they might be happy to get to them figures, but I think we took a flashback to last year with you. It was just before the drought hit, and you would have probably been hitting 60s and 70s at this stage of the season. Like, you're quite highly stocked on both farms. Like, you've probably seen a bit of a lift towards in the March paddock, but it did dip off quite a lot on you.
In March, it was growing okay, but then it dipped in April, and it's maybe rising a bit. But on the 13th of this time last year, 13th of May last year, we cut 60 bales of silage off ground, and there's no way we'll be cutting silage this year in the middle of May. So we're well back.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that, like, you have to actively manage on both cases. And like, what have you done, like, fertilizer wise? You might just take us through, like, where are you at the moment? The second round, I imagine, is more or less all out on your farm, is it?
Well, we put the first round out on the 1st of March, and we done about 70% of the second round 2 weeks ago, but it hasn't responded much at all since. Probably
moisture is catching you as much as temperature at the moment as well, Paddocks.
Yeah, and frost at night. We've a good lot of frost every night, and the ground's very dry here. And any dryness gets trouble with us. Like, we need moisture.
Look, you mentioned your demand is slightly exceeding your growth at the moment. Just in terms of management, what steps have you taken? Like, how many grazing groups are we talking on the two different farmlets?
Well, we've just the one group on the outer farm, and we have two groups here at home. So the two groups consist of ewes with lambs, and the remaining group at home is the dry hoggets, and they're coming behind the other ones to clean up the ground, to clean up the paddocks.
Look, that's something that happens a lot of farms. When hoggets can often be the poor relation, and it's a case of needs must. What kind of heights are you going into or coming out at with your ewes and the hoggets? Then what are you taking it down to?
Well, I suppose, you see, we're sort of slightly going in too high. We could be going into maybe 9-10 centimetres. And this year we're tending at home now to take them out about at 5 and let the dry hoggets clean it out a bit better. We don't want to put too much pressure on them with the wee lambs. As over in the other farm, they're not as high, and we can let them in and move them fairly quickly then in 3 or 4 days. And they seem to be cleaning it out around 4 centimetres themselves.
And the hoggets, I assume, at home, they're cleaning it down about 4 as well for you?
Yeah, just about 4. But there is a disadvantage when you do that, is that you're leaving them there, and the regrowth is a week later because they could be sitting there for a week cleaning it out. So you're a week behind.
It is stalling at that wee bit, and they're taking off the fresh leaves. But I suppose, depending on supply in the farms, in case it needs must, with both, and you're trying to prioritise lamb growth.
Yes, exactly. And trying to have a good growth on the way back for the second round, that you have good leafy grass. You have to have it eaten down well.
Look, we mentioned the two groups, and frequently one of the challenges at this stage of the year is getting out of that field quick, and you've touched on that already, getting down to that residual and keeping that residency period short. You've the farm well laid out in terms of permanent divisions, but I know you're a big fan of temporary splitting up of paddocks. What system are you using, Paddocks?
Well, we sort of have a lot of paddocks. Like, we have 20 paddocks between the two farms, and they'd consist of around about a hectare on average, and they'd be split again into a half hectare this time of the year, and about 3 days they'd be moved on out of each paddock, and it means you grow an awful lot more grass because you're getting out very quick.
I've seen you use FlexiNet before. Like, you probably moved away a little bit from that to more just the 3 strands or 4 strands of polywire in the last couple of years.
Yes, the polywire is so easy to put up and take down, and that's where we use that, and it does the job. But now at home, now I'd have to say we have some sheep, and the polywire is not just working as well, so netting has to be provided sometimes to keep them quiet.
I think that was a batch of individual hoggets one year, if memory serves with you. But like, just yes. When did you start putting that polywire up? When do you start splitting your paddocks normally?
Well, funnily enough, now we'd be different than some people. We'd have them split maybe the whole year, but we sort of keep them split. Most people would put them up now, for the second round, but we sort of keep them split the whole time so we can move them on quick.
And look, that's something that's come up before. Over the years, you've built up a lot of, posts. You've built up a lot of polywire and setups, and you have different fencers. It's allowed you that flexibility. You don't have to take them down. You're not under pressure to move them each time.
Exactly. I suppose it's pure laziness. When I have it up, I don't want to take it down, when they set out. But it's not that big of a job putting it up anyway, but just we have the wire on things, so we just keep it in those kind of paddocks. And then it's so easy when we're making the silage, we just knock them down anyway, and that works out the best.
And I know similar when you were talking about spreading on the farm, you do the similar approach with that. You can just drop it down and you can spread away.
Exactly. We take them all down for the first spread. Yeah.
Just in terms of management, oftentimes at the moment I'll be talking maybe about dealing with heavier covers and the advantage of polywire. In the current situation where growth is limited, it probably has a big advantage for you, Paddocks, so far as you're grazing them out quick, but they're also getting rested quick again. Exactly.
The regrowth is, after 3 days. So obviously it's better than leaving them for a week on a bigger paddock. So, the regrowth comes, if the right conditions is there, if we got the rain now, Ciarán, and a bit of moisture, we'd be okay, I'd say.
Look, the other thing that crops up in terms of closing up for silage, and I know there'll be a lot of listeners are probably after regrazing some of the silage ground this spring, and look, it's a case of needs must. You've moved away from purposely closing up a lot of ground. I know you do some, but you've moved towards taking more offcuts as the year goes on, as a way of managing grass, but also as a way of producing that high quality silage as the year goes on. Roughly, Peadar, how much of your silage each year is from ground intended to close up for, as opposed to taking offcuts?
Well, just at the minute, an example is we've about 15 acres closed up for silage, and that'll be it. After that, it's just anything that gets too strong as the year goes on will be cut for silage, but it won't be any one paddock, it'll be just whatever is strong at the time. So 18 acres or 15 acres it'd be the most we'd ever close up.
So nearly more than half your silage now is coming from offcuts every year.
Oh yeah, it'd be 2/3, Ciarán. Be 2/3 anyway.
Paddocks, just one other aspect of what you're doing on the farm. You're measuring grass, and you've been at this for a long number of years, even before you started with us. But you're recording on PastureBase. Maybe from your own perspective, it's one thing us talking about, but you're making use of your highly stocked farm. What do you think the advantage is for you for measuring on a regular basis?
Oh, the whole advantage is that you know what you have and what you need, and there's no point just looking across the hedge. If you don't measure it and go by what you see on PastureBase, it's a waste of time. But I'd never stop measuring now, because it's the only way of knowing what grass you have and producing good quality grass.
And look, hopefully that's translating into lamb performance as well. I know you said you're due to weigh, I think it's this coming week, so it is. So it'll be good just to get a check on how the lambs are doing, and I'm sure that information will go out in the sheep newsletter for the coming month anyway. Just, Paddocks, when you are weighing, is there any other checks you're going to do at that time, or the team that's with you there are doing it?
Well, the Sheep Ireland lads will be out here too, and they'll be checking for mastitis and lameness and dirtiness in the ewes and in the lambs.
As you just mentioned, Sheep Ireland, you're also an OV-data flock, so you are. So, some of that commercial data that's feeding into our indexes is coming from flocks like yours. So, the mastitis and that will be a good time to get in and check anyway on performance, and that no doubt will translate into some of them poor performing lambs you might come up with.
Exactly. You often see one good lamb and one bad one, and you'd often wonder why. And when the lads are here, they won't be long telling us what the reason is. We're checking them.
Very good. Peadar, plenty of information coming from your farm. Certainly, we're all getting good benefit from it. Look, it was great chatting to you this evening, so it was. Hopefully, next time we'll talk to you, conditions warm up a wee bit and things are progressing on. Okay, we'll have to wrap things up at this point. Always good catching up with Peadar and hearing about his system and how he's actually managing it this year. He highlighted a lot of key things in that podcast, but the use of temporary fencing for him, keeping that residency period short to maintain land performance and protecting his regrowth, something particularly important at the moment where grass growths are low and we're trying to boost performance in every way we can. It's a simple system he's using, but it's one that works effectively. Updates on Paddock's farm and other farms at the Better Farm programme are available on Teagasc's website. There are also updates in the newsletter each month, and we'll have updates posted on the Twitter page as the year progresses. That's it for me for this episode. Again, for any other updates from our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Ciarán Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, and you can listen in to any of our episodes.